Hey guys, I have a short video for you covering Windows forms. For this one, I have the fortune teller, and when I click on this button, it asks me to enter a name first. So, Mr. Abissi, and you'll notice a few things happen when I click this button again. First of all, it gives a image and then a fortune that relates to it. These are silly ones that I found online. You don't need to outrun the bear, you only need to outrun the slowest person you're traveling with. And at the top, it changed from fortune teller to Mr. Abissi's fortune. Same thing will happen for any name I put in there. How about I say Mr. Duel? Oh. I have to actually click the button. Oh, I pressed a return, that's why. It's multi-line. There it is, Mr. Duel's fortune. And it should give me something new and random. Okay, this time it was 404, fortune not found. And I don't need to put in a new name. If I just keep clicking, it will give me a different fortune. Looks like it's mostly that. Okay, help, I'm being held prisoner in a Chinese bakery. This was a silly one. Your finances are key to your financial success. Borrow money from pessimists, they never expect it back. Always be yourself, unless you can be Batman, then always be Batman. But all of these are random. The most important elements that I'm going to go over with you are, I'm going to show you guys some new formatting for a label. I'm going to show you how to use the text box's input and how to show item or information from the text box. I'm going to show you how to use a picture box along with an image list to show you a random picture. And we're going to use a string array to switch up our language for our fortune. So let's get to it. I'm going to start from scratch, and I'm going to start with a Windows format. So look up Windows Form app and make sure that's C# framework. Remember, VB stands for Visual Basic. That's actually a totally different programming language and not one that we're going to cover in this class. But we're going to go on the regular one. So go ahead, double click, name this fortune teller or whatever you'd like to name it. Call it video. And the .NET framework as 8.0, that looks good. And another thing I'm going to end up showing you is how to easily add images into your code. I'm going to do a little bit of Google searching, but I'll show you those steps. Most of it I'm just going to bring in from stuff that I already saved, so that way you don't watch me looking up a whole bunch of different random images. However, the process will still be. So, okay, we're loaded up with our form, and I'm going to start off really quick and easy by adding a few labels, and I'll show you guys the names I'm going to give these labels as well. But first of all, I'm going to give a title label, and I don't really need to look at the Solution Explorer, so I'm going to minimize that. And this label, let me start off with the name because the name is exceptionally important. If I ever want to change something, then I need to reference it by name. So the name for the label, I'm going to name it LBL underscore title. Any label that I do, in Windows Forms, I always name LBL underscore to give myself a good idea of what I'm looking for or what I'm looking at. Just signifies that's a label. Obviously, that's not going to change the text. To change the text, change that right here. I'll call this fortune cookie. And I can manipulate the font and the appearance any way that I want. Starting off with that one, I'm going to use the same font that I used previously or in the code that I showed you guys. That one's called Robbie. And the size of it, I'm going to make relatively large. 35 looks pretty good. And I'm going to show you a few other things for the label. Now, right now, the label is stuck on its size, and it's kind of hard to manipulate. So what I'm going to do is, if you scroll all the way down to layout, let me move this out of the way a little bit. But under layout, you see this auto size. Change that from true to false. And now you'll see that this label box is something that I can size. I'm going to make this nice and big. And I'm going to do a few extra things to it. First thing I'm going to do is, if I go into Appearance, Text Alignment is currently top left. I'm going to center that, so middle center. And then some other things I'm going to do for behavior. Allow drop, I'm going to change that to true. So now if I shrink it, it will go down or overflow. And I'm also going to add true to the auto ellipse. The auto ellipse is kind of nice. What that does is if it runs out of space, it adds a ... to show that there's more, as opposed to just being cut off. But there we go. I'm going to make it nice and big. I'll shrink the size just a little bit so that I can have multiple lines comfortable. Okay. So I have my fortune label, and I'm going to add 2 more labels. I want to use the exact same formatting styles that I have. I'm going to change them up just a tiny bit. But to do that easy, I'm just going to copy and paste this one. I can do that one of 2 ways, or actually really one of 3 ways. But if I click on it and press Control-C and then Control-V, it will copy and paste. And this next label is going to be a small label. This is going to be my prompt. It's really just, I don't know if I can show you guys it quick and easy, but like it's just telling me to put in the name. Here, let me pull that up. Okay. I'll just shrink this one quite a bit. This will be about 15-point font. Okay, it looks good. I'm going to name this. The names are always really important, a lot more important than the text inside of it. But LBL underscore name underscore prompt, because this is my label to prompt the user. I don't want this to be so bold, so I'm going to change the font style. Papyrus looks okay in this situation. And I'm going to change the text to say input your name. And click on the fortune button. All right, there, nice and small. And then next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a text box. So a text box is something that a lot of people, when they first look at Windows Forms, mistake for a label. A text box actually has a little bit more to it than a label. A text box, I'm actually able to write in text. I can also display text, but it's really more designed for input and output. While a label is really just output, I can't type into a label, but I can into a text box. So I'm going to add that right there. And since it is a text box and not a label, I always start this out with txt and go underscore name, because this will be a text box for my name. And then how about I add the fortune now too? I said I was going to make another label. So instead of Control-C, Control-V, this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag the label and then press and hold Control, and that will also create a copy. So here is where I'll put my fortune, and I'm going to reposition the alignment of it. It'll be the top center. I think I'm going to make the font size just a little bit smaller, but still the Robbie font, because it is nice and bold. And that looks fine. I'm just going to write fortune instead of fortune cookie there. But now when I generate it, my fortune will show up here. And I only need really 3 more things. I need my picture box, which will be right here. I need my button, which I'll put right here. And then I'm going to need a list of images, which I'll show in a little bit. So, all right, let me add my picture box. Just going to drag that in. I'll make that nice and big. And I think I'm just going to add a default image as well. So if I click on that tiny, tiny little button right here, I can see choose image. And I'm going to import one from my computer. Now, this is what I did, and I recommend that everybody does the exact same thing. Create a folder for all of your images. It will nicely organize everything and make everything for you way, way easier, so you don't have to focus on all of this other stuff. I had created this folder in my downloads because I planned on only using it here, but I named it Fortune Cookie Images, and double click on it, and then these are all the images that I pulled in. I'm going to pull up the fortune cookie image. Looks good. Click OK. And you'll notice that it doesn't fill in the entire picture box. To make it fill the entire picture box, there's a few ways I can do it. One is I can press zoom. And what that does is it makes it fill the box as much as it can while keeping the correct dimensions. If I press stretch, it just warps the dimensions to fit the box, however it looks. And since it's just a fortune cookie, and honestly, I'm not too concerned about them looking perfect, I'm going to just stretch the box. And then finally, I'm going to add a button. Oh wait, I'm sorry. Before I add my button, I forgot. It's really important that I name this. As a picture box or an image, I always start with img underscore for image. And then I'll just call this Fortune. It's my Fortune image. And now let me go ahead and add a button. So I'm going to drag that in. Make that nice and big, similar size to my cookie. And then this one, again, name is very important. I'm going to call it BTN for button. All my buttons I start off with BTN. Underscore. And I'll just call this Fortune 2. It's my Fortune button. And then inside the text, I'll just write click to see your fortune. And to make it a little bit more bold, I'm going to change the font. Just for continuity, I'll keep it the Robbie font. And change the size. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. Okay, excellent. And then the final thing I'm going to add, which will cover everything I need for the visual standpoint, is a image list. So dragging in an image list, this is important to know, it's not going to show up anywhere in the form. It's actually going to show up down here. That's totally fine. That's exactly what I anticipated and what I want. So the image list, I'm going to name this. Anytime I do an image list, I call it img underscore list to know that's a list. And then this is going to be my fortunes, like the list of fortunes or fortune images. So I'm going to call it fortunes. Yep, img underscore list underscore fortunes. And then lastly, adding images. Okay. I said I was going to show you how to find images or how to pull them up. So let me do that right now. First thing, what I did was I looked up silly fortune sayings. And let me see if I can find. Okay. This is one that I liked. It was, your fortune is in another castle. So because of that, it makes sense to use Toad from Super Mario Brothers. That's the one. Odd image. Here. There's Toad. All right. Now, to add one of these images into my file, there's a few things I can do, but really what I need to do is I need to save it. So if I hover over any one of these that I want, I kind of like this one, there's a few things I might need to do. I'll right click and click Save Image As, and this time I kind of got lucky and it was a JPEG. Oh, also this is important. Remember how earlier I made that folder? I want to save everything into that folder. So, all right, fortune cookie images. I could save this right here as Toad, but here's an important thing. A lot of times when I go to save an image from a website, it doesn't give me an image type, and if it doesn't do that, then it's not going to work. So this is my workaround. It's not a great workaround, but it does work. If I press Window and type snip for the snipping tool, or Window Shift S, that also works. But if I open up the snipping tool and click New, I can take a screenshot of whatever I would like, and then I just save from here. And that will actually save as an image type. So how about I go ahead and do that? All right, well, I actually already have a Toad image. Here, I'll just save over it. Yeah, so I'll place it. Okay. And then I'll do that for all of my images. Once I'm done, I'm just going to close everything out. Really, I'm going to have about, I think, 9 or 10 images. For you guys, I would recommend having a minimum of 3. You can have as many as you'd like, but with 3, I can actually see different images as opposed to just 1. So I'm going to add all of my images, but there's one other thing before I add images, and this is also going to be really important. When I click on that tiny little button right there, it asks what image size this will be. I want to go the biggest I can. It's currently 16 pixels by 16 pixels, which obviously is very, very small. The biggest I can go is 1 byte by 1 byte, so the biggest number I can get is 255, comma 255. And image bit depth, 32 bits is good. And once I have those, then I can click Choose Images. Just so you guys know, if I keep that at 16, when I add the images, they're going to be blocky and not look very good, unless I make them tiny, which I don't want to. So, choose Images, Add, and I'm going to open up, again, my downloads, open up that image folder, and I'm going to add each of these images one by one. There's another kind of screwy thing about Visual Studio, but it doesn't like it when you try to do them all at once, even though it seems tempting. I end up with blurry images if I do that. So do them one by one. And I have an order to these. So Eeyore, money, reading. There's an assembly line. Batman, 404. A bear, hungry, and Toad. Okay, so I actually have 9 images. But once you have all the images you want, go ahead and click OK. Excellent. And that is everything I need from my visual standpoint or the front end. So getting into the code, starting out my code is going to be very, very easy. All I have to do is double click on the button to create an event for that button. So I'm double clicking now. And there it is. My entire code has been pulled up. I have my class where I'm going to add my variables, and my only event which I really need in this one, which is the fortune click. And like normal, I'm going to start off with a title block. My title block at the top should always say my name, the date, the purpose of the code, and I also always add the learning objectives. Now, you guys obviously swap this up to make it look like yours. but it's the fortune teller, and then you're the author. Here's the date. But the purpose of this code is to create a, well, Windows form that will visually display a random fortune and image after the user types in their name and clicks a button. And my big learning objectives, as I mentioned earlier, were to generate and display random images, to display random text from a string array, which we will add soon, use event-driven code with buttons, and use text boxes and display their context. Excellent. Okay, so let's get to the code. First of all, we're going to add random values, or we're going to choose random indexes. So a lot of you, if you've ever taken class with me, you already know I'm going to need what I call the magic book of random. Random equals new random. For anybody that has not taken the class with me, please do know that I understand this is an object instantiated from the random class. There's a little more to it than that, but you don't really need to know that in order to use it or create it. So I'm just calling it the magic book of random. Needed to create random values. All right, excellent. I'm going to shrink this because I won't really need that. All right. And then here's going to be an important thing. When I create that random value, it's going to be a random index, and I'm going to want my string array and my images to match. So I want to save that index so I can use it more than once, which means that I'm going to have to add a int variable. I'll call it fortune number. I'll initialize it as 0. And then I'm going to add my string array. My string array I'm going to call fortunes. And inside of it, I'm going to add, well, all of the fortunes I have. So these are the ones that I found. These are actually silly fortunes that I found online from, well, legitimate fortune cookies. And I'm going to copy and paste them from a different code. But here you go. Borrow money from pessimists, they never expect it back. Your finances are key to your financial success. It just sounds so silly. Oh, this was a funny fortune, like if you could read it, you are not illiterate. Help, I'm being held prisoner, always be yourself. Your fortune is in another castle. I do know that I made that my final one, so I'm gonna have to just move that to the bottom. And real quick, the reason why I did that was, all right, this is the fortune at index 0. And then if I look at my image list, at index 0, I have a picture of Eeyore. And that matches my pessimist. The final one, finding it in a different castle, that was an image of Toad from Super Mario Brothers. So my important thing was each of these had to match the string in the array. So I'm going to click OK, go back here. And honestly, I think that is all I need for my instance variables. Now, remember from previous lessons, we were using global variables for a very long time. But since this is a variable inside of a class, it's known as an instance variable. So this variable only belongs within this form. It doesn't belong to any other form. Okay. And then my final thing is making that button actually do something. Because right now, when I click on it, nothing's going to happen. Let's start off with some very simple things. How about I just create that random value? Fortune number is going to equal a random value. And what I'm going to use is random.next. to get a random integer, and that's really close to what I want, but here is the potential problem. If I use fortunes.length, like the length of this string, when I try to do an image, if that image does not exist, say I try to get index value 9, I'm going to get an error here. So I actually don't want that. Well, I guess the same is true if my, well, yeah, if my string size isn't correct or my image size isn't correct. But, all right, fortune number is going to equal a random value between 0 and, how about I make it the, all right, instead of the fortune's length, because some of you may have copied this and not this, so you have varying sizes. I'm going to do the image, let me delete all of that, image list fortunes. So I'm referencing the list of images. More specifically, I'm listing the images inside of that, so dot images, and then dot count, because it is a list. So this will generate a random value between 0 and go all the way up to the number of images minus 1. And the reason for that is random next includes the smallest value but doesn't include the largest value. So that way I know I will not get any sort of error when I try to display that image. So all right, after that, I'm going to change the image to be that index. So I'm going to reference the fortune image, not the list, but the fortune image. And the property that I'm changing is the image inside it, so dot image. I know it sounds a little bit redundant, but there's so many potential properties, I have to say which one I'm doing. So image fortune equals image, dot image equals, and then it's going to be from my list of fortunes, dot images, because that's what I'm referencing, whatever the fortune number is. All right, now would be a really good time to test to see if that works. Right now, the only thing that's going to change is the image, but I do want to make sure that it's properly referencing and everything gives me no error. So I went ahead and clicked play, and this pops up. So once I click on the button, I should get a brand new random image there. There we go. There's Toad. Trading Places. That's a classic Eddie Murphy movie. All right, a lot of random ones. Yep, people running, assembly line. Awesome. All right, next thing I'm going to do is change the label. More specifically, I'm going to change this label to show the fortune text. And in order to do that, first of all, the thing that I'm changing is LBL name. Oh, I'm sorry, LBL fortune, right? Let me check what I titled it. Oh, looks like I did not rename it. My bad. I'm sorry, guys. That one I'm going to name LBL underscore fortune. If I kept it label 1, then I could use that, but to make it obvious, I'm going to do LBL underscore fortune. So, all right. LBL fortune dot image, not image, dot text. And that is going to equal whatever value from that string. So fortunes at the fortune number. that'll be to match the string index. All right, from here, when I run it, it should not only change the image, but it should also change the fortune. There we go. Yep. Assembly line, being held prisoner in Chinese bakery. 404, fortune not found. Don't need to outrun the bear. You'll be hungry again in an hour. All right, everything's looking pretty good. Always be yourself unless you can be Batman. You're not illiterate. Fantastic. All right. We're just about done. There's 2 more things that I want to add. One of them is I want to change the fortune text. And I'm sorry, the title text. Instead of saying fortune cookie, I want it to say whose fortune it is. And that is going to match whatever somebody wrote inside of the text box. Now remember, that one's named text name, and this one is named LBL title. So I'm going to change the text in the title. LBL underscore title dot text is going to equal the text box name dot text. That will just say the name that you typed in. So if we wanted to add the fact that it's their fortune, I'm going to say their text plus apostrophe S, so blanks, fortune. All right, let's run this again to make sure that works. And then I'll have a final condition that forces the user to type in a name. All right, let's see, Mr. Abissi. Perfect. All right, says Mr. Abissi's fortune. And if I keep clicking, yes, it will give me new fortunes. But any name I add will change that fortune. If my name were Pablo. Pablo's fortune. Fantastic. All right, so that final thing I was going to add was a conditional statement where I'm going to check if there is any text inside of there, and if there isn't, down here I'm going to prompt the user to enter a name. So let's do that really quick. I'm right if the LBL, I'm sorry, not the LBL, if the text box name is, oh, sorry, if the text inside of it, because I do need to state what property I'm referencing, is equal to an empty string, meaning it is blank. And actually, that's not what I want. If it's blank, I don't want to run this. So there's a couple ways I can do this. I can change this to if it is not blank, or I can say if it is blank, and now I'm going to move some things around. So let me cut and paste this or move it over to else. So I'm just going to drag it over. Okay. If it is blank, currently don't do anything. Otherwise, do all of this. But if it is blank, then I'm going to write inside the fortune text. So LBL fortune.text. This is about the only way the user could actually see and tell that it's not happy with me. Please enter a name first. Another way I could make sure the user knows is I could pop up a message box. That would also work. That might be a little more obvious to the user, but I'm just going to focus on this one. All right, So let's give that a try. That is all that is left. So when I click run, right now I haven't typed a name in here yet. So if I click to see my fortune, it says please enter a name first. Excellent. All right, Mr. Abissi. You'll be hungry again in an hour. Probably sooner than that. But looks good. The title is updated with my name in it, the image and the text match. Everything is all set. So guys, that is everything for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you made a whole bunch of changes and made it your own, had a whole bunch of fun with it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and have a great rest of your day. See you, everybody.